I'm going to talk about actually the BT head-end journey that we've been on, and I'll talk a little bit about the history of BT in TV. I'm going to talk about how our head-end has evolved, particularly in the last probably 7 or 8 years since we've become a sports broadcaster and we've launched our app-based services for TV and sport. This screen is going berserk down here. A little bit about me. I look after 2 aspects of TV infrastructure in BT. Actually, I look after our consumer-facing products and services for BT and for BT Sport, but I also look after the media and broadcast wholesale services that we provide, networking, contribution, distribution services to the likes of the BBC, to the likes of ITV. We run the Hermes broadcast network for the BBC, so on. So that's one facet to my TV experience. The other one being the consumer TV and sport. The other aspect, again, that I've recently inherited actually is the responsibility for our broadband network infrastructure as a consumer ISP covering BT Consumer, EE and PlusNet. It's a good thing because our TV proposition largely depends on the quality of our broadband network for a great quality of experience. So having that extra bit of control and influence over our network direction and so on is really handy for our TV quality of experience. A little bit of BT TV history. So just about 10 minutes walk away from here is BT Tower, those of you who knew it. On the left-hand side, that is what the TV control room looked like in 1964 for BT Tower, pretty much when it was launched, actually. And it was actually before I was born, just. People have said it looks like an old episode of Doctor Who. It looks like the TARDIS control room in some shape or form. It's evolved considerably since that time to the view that you see on the right of this picture, our International Media Centre, where we have around 18,000 hours per day of video content traversing our global media network, which is monitored from that position on the right-hand side there. Simon and I were debating how many channels there were in 1964. It was 2, or probably not more than 3. I can't remember. It was 3, was it? There you go. So scale, complexity increased. So BT has a long history in TV and a great history in innovating with video. We were the first in the UK, to launch our BT Sport service and broadcast ultra high definition 4K pictures for TV back in 2015. So great innovation in video. We've been innovating with data. These are some screenshots from our very popular TV from our sport app. You can see all the stats, the multiple camera angles, the timeline manipulation that customers can do on that application. On the left-hand side, you can see the connected red button service that you get on our multicast TV platform, where you can get goal alerts from the other games. If you think of Champions League, where you have multiple games running concurrently, you could be watching one of them, getting goal alerts for the other games that are going on, like the player stats, so on and so forth. So some great innovation in data there alongside the video. And of course, not forgetting audio. We launched our Dolby Atmos capability on BT Sport just over a year ago. Now it's well received by our customer base. If you haven't tried it, give me a knock, come over to BT Tower, to our demo room. I'm more than happy to demonstrate BT Sport with Dolby Atmos in 4K for you. It's a fantastic experience, well received again by our customers. And of course, most recently, VR, or 360 video. We've had our toe in the water for the Champions League, where we were host broadcaster for the Champions League final last year. We've been doing lots of VR events, predominantly in and around sport, since we took the plunge last year. Again, it's very popular with customers. It's fair to say that it's a work in progress in terms of improving the customer experience, but we're innovating in this space, and we're finding that customers are increasingly positive about that VR experience. And it's resulted in a plethora of awards. I won't dwell on these, other than the Emmy that we won for some of our TV Connect service, our facility line services. Our top centre there, we won a technical Emmy last year, for which we're particularly proud in our team for our carriage of video. Actually, it's a product that's been around for 20 years. It's taken 20 years to get that Emmy award for that service, but it's recognition of the longevity of that capability. Given that SDI is still a fairly dominant force in the handling of video in our production, playout and distribution infrastructure. So, just as a recap, TV has an incredible pace of change. Consumption patterns we've heard a lot of today, the plethora of new devices, there's business models and opportunities, and the changes in the TV production space. I'm going to talk a little bit about the last one a little bit more, the move to IP, because it's very important for me in some of the topics I'm going to talk about, the future of our head-end innovation. Quick recap. I'm not going to dwell on those. It's another sort of timeline, in particular, demonstrates over the last 6 or 7 years of just how much innovation we've had to deploy in our head end. And the reason this scene-setting slide is important is because as a result of all this change, this rapid pace of change and significant new capabilities being introduced to our service, it's developed a lot of complexity in our head end environment. So, as a result of all of those things that I showed you on the previous slide, we actually ended up with 3 head ends as a result. So we've got a very stable IPTV multicast service that we've been running for a number of years. When we became a sports broadcaster in 2013, we had the desire to introduce our first app for BT Sport. We had to do it in record time, so we had to build the studios, launch BT Sport service, become a sports broadcaster, and all the apps and paraphernalia that goes with it in less than a year. So we took the opportunity to build a tactical head end that was dedicated to BT Sport. That sat alongside what I would call, the legacy aerospace head end that we had for our IPTV service. And in 2014, actually, we introduced a TV Everywhere service that covered the rest of our non-sport channels. So that meant, actually, we took a lot of tactical decisions about getting those things to market very quickly. It meant that we had these 3 head ends, which was a challenge for us. Operational reasons, managing multiple head ends, the cost of it, dealing with multiple service providers and suppliers was pretty tough. So we had a plan to get to a converged head end. So over the last couple of years, we've been slowly collapsing all 3 of those head ends onto a software-based encoding platform that we happen to have procured from Elemental, as it turns out. But, insert your encoder provider of choice in that plan. Now, that has yielded for us, we've had to do that consolidation, by the way, while maintaining a live platform of around 120 IPTV channels for our customer, developing new products and services for our customer, because the business won't wait while I say, hang on, we've really need to stop all our innovation and our product development while we simplify our operational environment. That just won't happen. And the encoder product space has been rapidly evolving while we've been actually doing our consolidation as well. So we're consolidated. We have a single platform now for our multicast IPTV distribution to our set-top box estate, and the same platform and encoder estate is being used for our adaptive bitrate delivery via CDNs to our application Sport and our OTT TV application. Some of the benefits there, the lower operating cost I've already mentioned, not having to deal with multiple service providers and vendors. It's created a platform for time-shifting TV services like live to VOD, restart capabilities and so on off that same platform that we didn't have with our legacy encoding estate. We've got a much faster time to market for our new products and services and having to deal with a single vendor and a single platform to carry out our channel delivery on. It's got a much smaller footprint in our data centers, and as I mentioned, our operations team are finding it far easier to look after that common platform than the previous 3 head ends that we had. The first bullet point is also quite important, because the shift from hardware-based encoding, ASICs and so on, to a software-based encoding platform has also been significant for us, because that actually stepped up the pace of change that we could get from our encoder partners in terms of improving the quality of the codecs and the picture and sound quality that we get from them as well. So that's quite a quantum change for us, a little quite innocuous on that slide. So we've got a converged head end that is delivering linear content to both our set-top box estate via multicast IPTV network and via our OTT service, our ABR service to devices. We think we can make it even better. So we've spent quite a lot of time, actually, looking at whether cloud, and public cloud most notably, can further help us consolidate and simplify and speed up predominantly our service delivery of TV products and services. So, conceptually, this is what we were looking at a very high level. We recognize developing networks, putting serving infrastructure and encoders and infrastructure into that data center, going through all the security checks and balances that you need to associated with that infrastructure and switching on. It's often the long pole in a product development or in the TV environment. And we really wanted to do away with as much of that infrastructure as I can, which is kind of strange for me as the director of infrastructure in BT to want to be doing away with it. But that's absolutely our ambition, is to get away with a less infrastructure environment, freeing up our engineers and our developers to focus on innovating products and services rather than building and maintaining infrastructure, which is commoditized. So I've said all that. I've highlighted actually the bottom bullet point on this. The other aspect we're looking at, not just speeding up our products and service delivery, but also having a platform for our designers, our engineers, and our product team to innovate within. It's been mentioned a couple of times actually. So that was a key sort of metric that we wanted to look at in our use of public cloud as well. I won't dwell on this. It just paints a picture of the complexity of the services and interactions that we have in our head-end state, and the challenge of migrating some or all of those over to a public cloud. We've got many external actors in this, like our ad management system for dynamic ad insertion, our live to VOD control mechanisms, our key management for encryption of services, so on and so forth. There are a bunch of external services, some provided by third parties, that we would need to integrate into this cloud ecosystem. So some of the major challenges that we had, aside of some of the interactions with external services that I mentioned on that previous slide, a fundamental one for us was how do we get our linear content, our channels, to the cloud to start with for encoding. We spent a long time looking at what is our mezzanine ingest format for public cloud that will give us the quality and the latency focus, as Massimo was just talking about, that we want to get to maintain or exceed the quality expectations of our customers. Another one, as I've mentioned, that our IPTV services to set-top boxes predominantly multicast distribution based for linear TV, is that public cloud does not support multicast. So, fundamentally, we were going to have to rethink the way we manage linear content outside of our own environment. Dealing with content security is a big theme. We're moving very expensive proprietary content that has billions of pounds of rights associated with it. We have to make sure that content remains secure end-to-end in that delivery. And actually, the last point is we weren't necessarily looking for a lower cost approach to our head-end solution using cloud. The primary objective was speed and agility. We need to run these services on a 24/7 basis, so cost will, as I'll explain in a minute, figure in our thinking. So we ran a proof of concept over a period of about 9 months, actually, and we concluded that, we're not quite ready yet. We need more developers to partner our broadcast expertise. My team is predominantly infrastructure-based. Most of the people in the video domain are infrastructure broadcast professionals that have been around for over a while, predominantly. We need to couple that expertise, that significant expertise and in-depth in video production and management with software developers. It's critical to take advantage of public cloud services where we're looking to orchestrate those services, automate those services, deploy and automate the test of those services in a public cloud environment. But we still obviously need that broadcast expertise to partner with developers to build these services. We decided it provides a fantastic platform for an experimentation. I think somebody mentioned the work that we've been doing with EE and the HDR trials that we did for one of the Champions League matches with Tottenham out of Wembley Stadium a couple of weeks ago. A lot of that development, that experimentation was done using public cloud services. It's far quicker to spin those services up on the public cloud than it would be to deploy a bunch of infrastructure in our data center for events that came to us very quickly. Where we think it does offer real benefits for us is in our workflows that are more dynamic. So video on demand was mentioned. I absolutely agree with the pixel comment here, in our case at least. We occasionally have to go through a process of re-encoding many petabytes of content for one reason or another. We want to improve the quality. We want to target a different codec, a different platform, or whatever. We don't want to have to put the infrastructure in for those one-off jobs. We've found that using clouds to dynamically scale to accommodate that VOD workflow offers real benefits for those kinds of point use cases where you have perhaps unexpected demand through audience scale, or in the example I've given, an unexpected demand for a back job, if you like, of VOD content encoding. And the other thing we've learned is there are a budding ecosystem of cloud service providers alongside our core encoder partner, AWS Elemental, that we're using, that are offering services alongside AWS Elemental. So we're really encouraged that this ecosystem is emerging, and we've got choice in vendors and partners to work with on public cloud services for our head end. One thing I am sure of is that our 5-year head end infrastructure swap out cycle has gone. That's the kind of cycle that we've been working on, these heavy lifting projects to get the old generation of encoders out, the new generation of encoders in. I don't want to have to do those projects anymore. We think the public cloud is going to offer us a significant advantage in not having to build infrastructure anymore. But we need, the last bullet point, more of our channel partners to be offering us content sources in an IP format. SDI, as I mentioned at the start, or baseband video handoffs are still ubiquitous, in the production state. It's going to take a while for our partners and our channel partners and content partners to get their production estate IP enabled, because as I mentioned earlier on, that is a prerequisite to getting your linear content to the public cloud. So a little bit more on the benefits. We've proven that we can, template our test and deployment services. We can provision a linear TV channel in minutes rather than weeks or months that it used to take us to build all that infrastructure out to accommodate a new channel. We can tear services down, as was mentioned earlier on, just as quickly as we spun them up and save on the cost of running that service. We don't have to build the same infrastructure in our test environments anymore. We can greatly reduce the cost of our test environments and only have them spun up on public cloud when we actually need them to do our testing, and turn them back down again or repurpose for other things. I've already mentioned that operations were can focus more on maintaining the service and the customer experience than they were on maintaining servers in our environment. So, there are significant benefits there for us in using public cloud for our head end as we move forward. So where are we? We're still largely on-premise for our deployment. We have point solutions where we're taking advantage of public cloud to deliver fairly discrete services. I've alluded to some of them earlier on, ad hoc workflows. We're looking at the origin server in the public cloud, because that's where we see the demand for scale on an as-required basis, depending on, let's say, how big a football audience is going to be for a particular match. We're busy building an end-to-end channel pipeline that can use a CDN point. So when you configure your channel, let's say use BBC One as an example, it will automatically create a CDN point for you to deliver that content to your adaptive bitrate devices as well. So we're taking really an opportunistic approach to adopting cloud using point cases. There is one, significant thing, that is holding us back here, and it's around the cost. The cost of running a 24/7 channel on cloud at quality, targeting all the devices that we want to target, is more expensive than running it on infrastructure on our premises at the moment. So it's not something that we're going to wholesale migrate all of our head end over to save money. I will say that the cost from our service providers that we're talking to is falling quite significantly. We expect it to get to a point where it's perhaps not as cheap, but close enough for us to bank all of the other advantages around agility on developing and delivering those services, where we see the real advantage. And we're willing to pay a small premium for that capability on public cloud, but not the significant premium that public cloud currently demands for delivery. So, takeaways from me. It's obvious that TV development is not slowing down. The pace of change is significant. It's hard to maintain that service while you're having to build out data centers full of infrastructure to deliver it. So we've been thinking differently about how we do it, as I've mentioned. It offers many benefits, public cloud, to speed up the development and delivery, which we were really keen to take advantage of when the cost gets there. I recognize we're different. We will be different from Sky. We might be different from Virgin in the way we deliver TV services. So there isn't a one-size-fits-all approach to cloud adoption. I'm really keen to adopt public cloud for infrastructure as quickly as I can, as soon as that price point hits a sweet spot for us. I think that's it. Question?
Thank you very much, Ian. I think we can do one question. Do we have one question from the audience? Yep, over here. Hello.
Thank you. Good presentation. David Price Erickson. I know that there's HEVC and possibly H.266 in your future. Do you find that it needs to have GPU-enabled blades in order to do those kind of codecs? And if so, how's that going to help you or hinder you in going to public clouds, which is where those GPUs are pretty rare?
Yeah, it is. And we're already using HEVC, so our 4K distribution uses HEVC right now. But you're right. 4K is also a challenge for us on public cloud for the very reasons that you mentioned. GPUs are available in the cloud, but we know that the processing performance, general processing performance, is increasing sufficiently for us to be able to deal with 4K reasonably soon, certainly in the timescales that I think we're working to public cloud adoption for 4K delivery.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So thank you.
Yes.